Thanks. So the elementary game in Boson is between a seller and a buyer. The seller has a product, the buyer has a payment, and in between is a smart contract escrow. They both have skin in the game as two-sided deposits. The first step is seller offering a product as tokenized voucher by submitting it on blockchain through his backend system that's not shown here. In our case, the seller will make an offer for Tesla Cybertruck. A voucher that is offered implies that the seller's deposit is moved to the escrow so that we assure the delivery of it. The buyer sees the voucher in the market and decides to purchase it. And by purchasing it, she is also committing that she will actually redeem that voucher later on. That commitment is a blockchain transaction. It needs to be confirmed because it's moving money. Here we're using standard MetaMask. And once the transaction is committed, the buyer's payment is moved to the escrow. The buyer's commitment to actually redeem that voucher is her deposit, now also part of the escrow. At some point later, the buyer decides to redeem that voucher. Tapping on the icon, she is presented with a QR code and asked to present it to the seller. The seller scans the code or searches for the item manually. Then he queries his backend, most likely a legacy system, to check that the validity of voucher and that the item is on stock. Note here that the seller doesn't interact with blockchain at all. Once seller confirms that the voucher is valid, he needs to convey this information back to the buyer. In this case, he asks the buyer to enter the collection code. Buyer enters the code. And once the code is entered, the voucher can be redeemed. This step represents that both parties agree that the voucher's promise will be delivered and paid for on the spot. So this signature is again a blockchain transaction. Both are notified that the transaction is recorded on blockchain as redemption signed, which means that the payment gets released to the seller and the product is delivered to the buyer. Now everything's fine, but only the two deposits are still locked in the escrow. If any of the actors would not fulfill their part, their deposits would be slashed and moved to the pool. But here we're only demonstrating a happy path, so we'll just wait for the complaint period to end. And once it is expired, they both get their deposits back. And we have achieved our objective in the game, which is redemption without a complaint.